Okay everyone, so short video today because we talked a lot about Maria in some of the recent videos, going a little bit over her stats, what she does, what kind of role she fills, and also that for me personally, on the free-to-play account at least, the decision was to not go for her. Ever since I added a comment to the video, there was also an announcement that she was actually nerfed even further, so even more of a reason to save your resources unless you're specifically looking for a PvP champion and wait for Leonardo if you can go for him. But obviously there's also Thorn Golem, which you can now get. I mean, this is a hybrid fusion after all, and we're going to take a bit of a closer look at him today and then a recommendation of whether or not to go for him. So keep in mind, we touched upon him just briefly in the last video, but we're going to take a closer look at his skills right now and where you can use him, if he's worth getting and if you should grab one. So let's jump straight in and take a closer look. So before we're going to take a look at the champion itself, here's a quick reminder over the entire Fusion event calendar. So you're getting your fragments for Thorn, and then if you're trying to go for Maria, you obviously fuse those 4 that you can get as a maximum into Maria herself. But it's actually fairly easy to get the fragments. You probably already got some. We are talking about classic arena takedowns, which are pretty easy to get if you're currently farming for either accessories in the Spider 10, or if you're looking for more savage gear, more regeneration gear, stun gear through the Fire Knight, and then of course Dragon. You can easily, through those tournaments and investing a bit of energy, get enough fragments to get yourself one of the Thorn Golems. So once again, if you're still planning, if you're still trying to figure out, okay, where can I get all my fragments, here's the calendar, and you can take a closer look at that. But it is fairly easy to get at least one of them. So obviously, with Faction Guardians being a thing, and this being more of a video targeted for a newer audience, if you want, you can even get 2 of them and then use them as Faction Guardians, or use them right there. But this is basically the calendar and what you can go through in order to make this a little bit easier for yourself. But let's take a look at the champion itself. So when we're talking about Thorn Golem, we have first of all an aura. So you have a resistance aura, which is actually not all that bad. Generally speaking, in most areas when you're using an aura, you want to have a speed aura. There's a couple of areas where you might lack the damage, so you go for a damage aura. But there are actually instances when you're going up against certain bosses, being it in the Doom Tower or in the Cursed City, where a resistance aura isn't really all that bad. And since this is also an aura that applies to all battles and not just a specific section, it's a pretty decent aura to have. If you have a better one on one of your legendary champions, then that's great. It's not a fantastic argument in favor of the champion, but it's always nice to broaden this out a little bit. We talked in the last video a bit about his passive, so this is actually quite neat. It doesn't really apply to all of his skills, and some of his skills, say A3 for example, it's just a straight up buff of your team, so there's no damage involved. But you can get heals, and that's obviously quite nice. So if you have an active spell that is being used that deals damage, then you are able to get some heals in. If you, for example, move him into Relentless gear, then you could also get multiple turns, get multiple heals. And essentially he's just really tanky. He's a defense-based champion, which means that you already by your very nature are very tanky and very sustainable. This is going to make this even stronger and even better in his favor. So you have a couple of options of what you can do. Relentless gear, as just pointed out, is just one of them. His A3 is going to be on a 3-turn cooldown if you book him, and if you get him, you definitely should. But this is really a champion that is going to help you to break through a lot of stages. And this is obviously specifically true when talking about dungeons. But dungeons are always a little bit of a... Dungeons are kind of interesting at this point, because generally speaking, when you're talking about newer accounts, you're mostly interested in getting to stage 24, 25, so that you can reliably farm 6-star gear. Now later on in the game, you're obviously trying to move also into the hard version of all of the dungeons. For that you need definitely stronger champions, and are usually heavily reliant on legendaries or extremely powerful epics. But at this point, I would say most of you have probably a lineup that already gets them where they need to be. I mean, on this account, we're going to go over an overview over our 4-month progression soon, but I can easily now get Fire Knight 24, Dragon Slayer 24, Spiders 24, and that's all that I'm really farming there. But you can use Thorn Golem, for example, also in those dungeons if you need to upgrade your lineups there a little bit. Maybe your runs aren't all that reliable and you still have a fail rate. But what you can also do is use him again in the Cursed City and in the Doom Tower. I spoke in a previous video about how important it can be, especially in those content areas, to have champions that can control the opponent's wave. And I talked a bit about physics in this context, I talked about stun sets, and that you want to generally be fast and just have CC. and this is a champion that can help you with that. So his A3 is going to give you a lot of sustain with this increased defense. He has the counter attack as well, which is obviously quite nice too for his own self-sustain, including the increased resistance. But then we're talking about his A2, for example, where you get, when you have him booked, 100% fear applied to the opponent, and you have a decreased accuracy. Both of them really important when you're trying to break through harder stages in the Doom Tower and the Cursed City, because once that you get all those fears applied onto yourself, or decreased defense, decreased attack, that can get really annoying. So if you have a decreased accuracy on the opponent, this is actually worth a lot. So this is a really cool tool that he has on this A2, and this is sitting on a 3-turn cooldown then at the end. Not only do you damage opponents, but you are able to get some control through the fear and decreased accuracy. If instead of Relentless Gear you throw him into stun, for example, you can also try and apply stuns with this as well. So you have a lot of tools here already to not only keep your own team safe, but then also try and control the opposing team. So this is a really nice arsenal that he has here. And then when we're talking about his A1, placing the leech, gotta be honest, probably one of the minor things here. You have a double attack, which is also interesting in the sense that you could use him for the Fire Knight, so you have the double attack in here. But I would say from all of his abilities, the A1 is probably the most unremarkable. If you don't have a lot of leech champions, this can be really helpful. I happen to have quite a few that apply leech very regularly on the opponent, so in this case that's not something that I need, but his A2 and his A3 really help a lot when you're trying to break through content here. And obviously he's also a Void champion, so the chance to get him right now with relative ease through the events is pretty big. If you try to pull him later, that is going to be a lot harder, so I would definitely recommend going for him while you can. And as I said, since the entire environment around the fusion is fairly easy to maybe even get 2 of them, that would at first give you another faction guardian that you can use later on. So there's a couple of things that you can really do with this. I would heavily recommend that you get at least 1. I think he's absolutely worth it, especially for newer accounts. And if you're, for example, suffering in the Sylvan Watchers faction, then he can really be one of the champions that helps you to completely break through there. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with the different sets that you apply to him. Generally speaking, you obviously want to have him fast, you want him with a lot of accuracy, and you want to have him tanky just in general. But if you can do that with a stun set or with a relentless set, you're really working either into his attack all enemies on A2, or you're working into his sustain and heal that he has, and this can be absolutely fantastic. So don't miss out on that guy. He's really good, especially for newer accounts, so you should make sure that you get him. Make just sure that you do well in a couple of the tournaments, farm gear that you need to farm anyways, and then you'll have a really nice tool for the future. If you can grab yourself 2 of them, hey, even better. But again, 1 at a minimum I would get. So Maria, for me, is a skip. He's definitely a freebie. In one of the last fusions, in one of the first on this account, I actually went for Golem, and I've ever since been using him. He's been carrying me in so many stages, and I would expect that Thorn Golem can fulfill the very much same role for me in other areas, and for everybody that has a newer account too. So guys, make sure that you grab one of these. We're going to have more videos in the near future talking a bit about progression in general, especially of course with the review coming after 4 months on this free-to-play account right now. And of course we're still all waiting for Leonardo with the hopes that we can all grab him. I'm pretty sure that I can at least get him on my main account, but here on the free-to-play account it could get iffy, so we are definitely waiting for more details on that. Either way, if you have any questions, any suggestions, let me know in the comments. Are you going for him? Are you going to grab yourself a Thorn Golem? Or is this a hard pass for you and you're saving all of your resources for later? Let me know. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.